Okay. And so now with America in the conflict, right? One of the jobs is we have to mention this, okay? One of the jobs was getting everybody mobilized. And I just want to review this real fast, okay? Mobilizing the army, mobilizing the military meant number one, getting the equipment ready for war. And look, there's a lot of money to be made in war. And this is an example like this picture I mentioned the other day, airplane chassis. And so what they would do is find a factory that already produced something similar, and then they would tweak it a little bit to produce war-making machines, or even things like clothing. Like let's say True over here, she owns a factory that makes clothes, and we're like, hey, we need 500,000 uniforms. And True is more than excited to get that contract from the government because it's guaranteed work for her people. All right. And she's like, I've been wanting to expand my factory anyway. And now with this extra money and this extra work, we can do it. Quinlan over here, he may have a factory that produces engines, okay, for vehicles. Or he already makes bullets, and they're like, hey, we need munitions. And we mentioned too that women start to become more important and play a role in this as well. Conscription, the draft, that's a fancy word for the draft. To pay for the war, we had war bonds, okay? And speaking of doing their duty, another thing they pounded in your brain that, hey, if you didn't get drafted and you weren't serving in the war, you should buy war bonds. Help do your part for the war. Okay? War bonds, if you still have them today, I think you can actually redeem them for face value. But the thing is that they're considered like collector's items. So not only could you redeem them at the bank still, people would buy them just because they would want to have them. All right. Now, the most important part of this is propaganda, getting everybody to believe that the war is good and that we're doing the right thing. Well, we have to get everybody to believe that the war is like we're on the right track with this. Okay. And to do that, the propaganda effort, and by the way, propaganda is distributing ideas, information, or rumors to help or to hurt a cause. Okay. And remember, does propaganda have to be true? No. Like, let's say that I wanted to help out Parker's reputation because Parker, and I'm going to pick on you because I know you're not going to get mad about it because you joke about everything. Parker says, Scalise, I know that I'm going to need a prom date and I need you to build me up and tell people all kinds of good things about me. So, in passing, in all my classes, I'm like, you guys ever heard of this Parker Lane guy? He is a fantastic human. He's like the son I never had. All right. Am I distributing ideas and information to help his cause? Absolutely. Am I exaggerating the truth? Also, absolutely. All right. So that's an example of propaganda. Okay. We have to get people to believe that the war is good. And there are several things that America does. First of all, Woodrow Wilson creates something called the Committee on Public Information. Okay. The Committee on Public Information. Right. That sounds like a very non threatening term. Their job is to get people behind the war, right? To convince people that America is doing the right thing, and not only are we doing the right thing, but we're going to win, and we're going to win with your help. We're on the right side, okay? Now, there's several things that the Committee on Public Information would do. And by the way, you don't call it the Committee on Propaganda because like then people are like, "Wait a second, you're distorting the truth. You're trying to manipulate me." All right? What we do, for example, one of the things they would do is they would get volunteers to be what they called 4-minute men. All right. And these volunteers, their job was to go around to cities or even some rural and suburb. Well, they didn't really have suburbs as we know it then, but they would go around to urban areas and rural areas. And what you would do, like this guy, you would draw a big crowd and you would give a speech in 4 minutes or less. All right. About why America was in the war and why it was a good thing. Right? 4 minutes or less. Why do you think they were supposed to give a speech in 4 minutes or less? Yeah, they know people don't have attention span. You got to drive home the point and you got to do it quickly. Okay? And so you could see in some instances, and you have to remember, it's 1917. All right? People don't have entertainment options. So you see some rando on a street corner yelling about something, you stop and pay attention. Notice too, he's got like a little megaphone in his hand. Okay? And these people know how to rile folks up. Let me show you an example of a little speech that they would give, one of the 4-minute men speeches here. And you can read it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just received the information that there is a German spy among us, a German spy watching us. Do you think that's true necessarily? Like in that crowd? No, but it sounds really good because as soon as you say that, what does everybody do? They look around. They're like, is it you? Is it you? What about you, York? You say you're related to the famous Alvin York, but have we ever seen you in the same room? Ooh. You're like, I don't know. Well, wait a second. All right. Now, it says he is around here somewhere reporting on you and me, sending reports to Berlin and telling the Germans what we're doing and about the Liberty Loan. Liberty Loan, by the way, was the war bond effort. All right. From every section of the country, these spies have been getting reports over to Potsdam, not general reports, but it says where the loan is going well and seems weak and what people are saying in each community. Okay. It says the German government is worried about our great loan. They fear that it has effect on their morale. And it says, if we lend our money half-heartedly, America seems weak and autocracy seems strong. All right. So meaning that how should you lend your money to the government? A lot. You need to be generous with your cash because do you want to be weak? No, the same way that they would drive people, like one of the things they play upon is they knew that a lot of people would go along with the war effort because they don't want to be labeled what? Traitors or a coward. Okay? Money means everything. It means quicker victory and less bloodshed. Okay? Americans can have but one opinion. Is that dangerous to say that? Absolutely. Like, look, man, what do we know about Americans and opinions? You got 10 Americans in a room and 20 opinions, right? Gosh. All right. I hope these spies are getting their messages straight and letting Potsdam know that America's hurling back these autocrats these answers. All right. For treachery here, attempted treachery in Mexico. What did they try to do in Mexico? They tried to get Mexico. They sent the Zimmerman note, tried to get Mexico to join the war. Treachery everywhere. 1 billion. Okay, I don't know what like. Are they talking about $1 billion? Nobody knows. For the murder of American women and children. Wait a second. Were American men and women getting murdered?
Yes.
No, but they're like it could happen. All right. So ultimately, for broken faith and promise to murder more Americans, billions and billions more. Okay. And also remember too, the American women and children. What event were they referring to? The sinking of the Lusitania, which, by the way, it was like out of the 1,200 people on that ship, there's like I think not even 100 that are Americans. They're mostly British. Okay, and then we will add in the world fight for liberty, our share, billions and billions and billions and endless billions. Do not let the German spy hear and report that you are a slacker.
How will this turn into the crowd just finding somebody that's a German spy?
That's a great question. Okay, now we're going to get to that in just a second. All right, here's a picture of a guy. Okay, this guy has been tarred and feathered. Okay, like what they did in colonial days to like tax collectors and people who were British sympathizers. Why do you think they tarred and feathered this guy? He's German. He was in the United States, and they didn't think he was loyal, so people tarred and feathered him. Americans wouldn't do that, would they? Oh, yes, they would. Okay, Americans are just as panicky and weird as anybody else, right? And I don't know what Americans. Hang on, I gotta go backwards for just a second here, right? I don't know that Americans essentially understand how easily they can be pushed in a certain direction. Okay, and so these 4 minute men would go around riling people up, and so you had incidents of violence because all of a sudden their names may have been a little too German, or I heard that you didn't want to give money to the Liberty Loan, or you know what, I saw you putting sauerkraut on your hot dog. Sauerkraut is from Germany. No, those are as American as could be. Okay, all right. Now, 4 minute men get people riled up. You get people feeling very patriotic. You also had Hollywood in on the action. All right, anti-German films were being produced out in Hollywood. Right? Oh, wait a second. American movies and television would not reflect that today, would they? That it's a lie beyond measure. Can you think of any films that like you would classify as like a good propaganda film? What do you think, Aiden? American Sniper. That's a good one about Chris Kyle, a former Navy SEAL. All right. Don't worry about him as a person, but worry about the movie. All right. Ultimately, they're saying, hey, we make this movie about this guy who's a Navy SEAL, and how do they portray him in it? As a hero. And there's no denying that he definitely does heroic things. But they also don't, like, you look at any person long enough and you're going to find personal failings of it. You think of any other? I'll tell you one from my generation. Rocky 4. Okay? In Rocky 4, you guys have you seen at least one Rocky movie? You know, Rocky's the quintessential American fighter. You know, and he's not the smartest guy, but he's tough and daggone it, he's going to find a way to win. And in Rocky 4, he's fighting a bigger, taller, younger Russian who has killed someone in the ring. And Rocky is going to find a way to defeat the Russians, just like America will find a way to defeat the Russians. And Rocky does win the fight. And at the end, he talks to the Russian crowd, and in his very Rocky voice, he's like, if I can change and you can change, everybody can change. And he's like, it's better two guys in here killing each other than 20 million. And he's like, oh man, this is great. All right. There's lots of ways in which Hollywood do that. So Hollywood would get involved in anti-German films. Okay. And also, the Committee on Public Information didn't just recruit Hollywood. They started getting a lot of artists and graphic experts to make pamphlets and posters about why Germany is bad news. All right? They start recruiting people to create pamphlets and posters. I'm going to show you some of those in a minute, and some video clips too. Man, you're going to love these. All right? Now, that's not enough though, okay? The CPI, the Committee on Public Information, they organize these 4-minute men to give speeches. They work with Hollywood to create anti-German films, and they create a series of posters and pamphlets that they distribute all around the country. All right? They want people to see Germany as the bad guy, the villain. And they also start changing culture to match it, okay? They start changing things to make people dislike the German culture. Take a guess what they stopped teaching in public schools. German language, okay? All of a sudden, we start saying the German language, you're like, no. You know who speaks the German language? And they're the enemy, okay? They're the enemy, right? We don't teach the German language in schools. You know what? That's funny. You ever heard of a school that teaches German? No. Spanish, French, Latin? Nobody speaks Latin. It's a dead language. But daggone it, we can't speak German, and it's a living language, right? It gets better. What do you think they tell symphonies and orchestras not to play anymore? German and Austrian composers, right? And symphonies are like, oh, holy crap, because if you know anything about classical music, that's mostly Austrian and German composers. You take away all the good stuff. No more Beethoven? Oh my gosh. No more Bach? I don't think we can handle this. You guys know that one, Handel? He's a famous composer. There should be a laugh track button up here. Okay? That's where you're supposed to laugh. All right? So, look, it gets better, man. All right? I swear I'm not making this up. Okay? We don't want German words and foods getting involved. Sauerkraut, which is a popular item people put on their food, all right? We don't call it sauerkraut anymore, Gabe. You know what we call it? Liberty cabbage. Liberty cabbage. Yeah. Hamburgers, because they came from Hamburg, Germany. No more hamburgers. It's not a hamburger anymore. You know what it is? Liberty sausages. Good. Nobody ever knows that one. Liberty cabbage, Liberty sausage. Gosh. And people love this. They eat it up. Now, you're going to love this too. I swear. In 2003, the propaganda is so on point. Okay? Because in 2003, here's what they tried to do. The United States invaded Iraq, and France refused to give us their support. All right? And George W. Bush and his people said, we're going to try to get an effort to, we're not going to call them French fries anymore. They're going to be freedom fries. All right? They tried to make that a thing. Okay? Americans are a little more clever now. If you're going to manipulate us, yeah, you better come up with something good. Okay? Freedom fries. Yeah, it didn't. You guys ever seen Mean Girls before? Stop trying to make fetch happen. Okay? It's not happening. All right? So look, they changed it. They want to poison people against German culture. People who had German sounding names, what do you think they did? They changed them. Even at the time, there was a famous World War One American pilot by the name of Eddie Rickenbacker, and he was German. He was of German descent, and he asked people, like, he didn't legally change his name, at least to my knowledge, but he wanted people to just call him Eddie Rick because he says it sounds more American. He was afraid of violence or retribution, and so were a lot of people because they were like, there's definitely not just an anti-German, but anti-immigrant sentiment already, and so anti-German as well. Aiden,
Was this around the time whenever that case of the Austrian German anarchists?
you're thinking, I think, of a little bit later. We'll get to those anarchists. All right. So we're changing the culture as well. Okay. Now let me show you some posters here in terms of this as well to show you what was happening. Oh, that poor guy got tarred and feathered. I guess you could say he was tarred of the treatment. Wow. And what's really great is all of these great puns will be recorded for posterity. All right. Now check this out. Okay. This is fantastic. The people who make this stuff really put time in this. This is a poster for the Liberty Loan. They want you to buy government bonds. And you can see it says halt the Hun. Hun was a derogatory term used towards the Germans, right? Anybody remember in ancient history who the Huns were? Who were they? Asian invaders, Attila the Hun. Now, look here too. You see this guy's supposed to be a German because you can tell because he's got what type of helmet? The spiked helmet. Okay, so we're just calling it the spiked helmet. All right, and he's got the black cross too. Okay, and look, who's this here? It's a woman, and what does she got with her? What's she carrying in her arms? It's a child. It's a small child. And look, does that woman have any clothes on? No. And look, if this American soldier wasn't intervening, what would that German do to that woman and that child? Not good things. That's a German with bad intentions. All right. And what's even better now, notice this too, and not you. Okay. Notice something important here. Level matters. The American soldier here is what's different about him than the German?
He's standing taller.
He's standing taller and prouder. And something else that's interesting here too. You see, the German soldier has a rifle with a bayonet. What's the American carrying? A saber, an old school saber. Why is that the case? Not you and not you. Why is he carrying a sword when the other guy's carrying a rifle? Aiden?
To show that he just knows how to use his sword better than the other.
Not a bad guess, no. It's more noble, chivalrous even, like a knight. He is the knight in shining armor. And notice, look at his jawline too. This guy looks like a respectable figure, and he's going to save the day. And look, you have to provide money to the government through war bonds because if you don't, that German soldier is going to do bad things. Ooh. He's not. He's like putting his arm out, like, no, don't do it. All right. This is great too. Okay. Join the Army Air Service. Be an American Eagle. At the time, they didn't have like the Air Force doesn't come into existence until after World War II, but you definitely had airplanes involved. And once again, level matters. This one is above the other one. And by the way, which one? Even if you didn't know level, how do you know which one's the American? The bald eagle, that's us right there. Okay. And this dark looking bird over here is the Germans. That represents the Germans. And this poster, like, is that a pretty good recruiting poster? Oh, look, being a pilot is all the rage, man. All the chicks are going to want to hang around with you at this point. But what they don't tell you about joining the Army Air Service, though, is that there's a pretty decent chance your first trip up, you're going to die. All right? Because that's where all the inexperienced and non-good fighter pilots die very quickly, is their first trip up. All right? This is great. Beat back the Hun with Liberty bonds. He's looking across the ocean at us. And what's he got on his fingers and on his bayonet? Blood. What's the landscape look like? Oh my gosh, they're coming over here next. Hey, do you think Germany was like really going to invade across the Atlantic Ocean? It'd take a big effort. They like the Kaiser had plans drawn up, but all of his generals were like, "This will never work." All right, but you got to scare people. Keep these off the USA. Buy more Liberty bonds. My gosh, who stands around in blood like that? No. Okay. He's got spurs on there too. Oh, These Germans, they must be terrible people. Right? Help crush the menace of the seas. What's the menace of the seas? U-boats, man. Okay? And look at that. What's he got in his hand? It's a knife, and it's a bloody knife. And look, right here he is. But what do you see in the background? It's a ship. All right? It's a ship. If you don't do something, if you don't buy war bonds, that poor ship, it's a goner. It's terrible. All right? Oh, man, this is a good one here, too. Remember Belgium. Buy Liberty bonds. Once again, now you just got silhouettes. Who's that guy on the right there? That's a German soldier. And who's with him? Who's with him there? Oh no, that's not a woman. That's a child. That's a little girl. Germans are monsters. What do they do to little girls? Molest them, rape them. Okay? Now, were there incidents in Belgium and in other places where German soldiers did things they weren't supposed to? Absolutely. But was every German soldier a murdering rapist? No. But you have to make them believe. You have to make people believe. Because when you believe the enemy is a murdering rapist, it's a lot easier to kill them. Parker. Oh, because here's the thing. The first time that they have a Liberty loan, it's not enough money. No, it's easier to just say they're the second or the third or the fourth. Now, this character who'd been around a little bit becomes immensely popular. Who is this character? Uncle Sam. And what's he known his mantra? It doesn't say it on this one. I want you. All right. And now, notice right here, too, it says, first call, I need you in the Navy this minute. And then they appeal to your sensibilities here by saying, our country will always be proudest of those who answered the first call. All right. Maybe you came on the second call for volunteers, but we will really be proud of you for the first call. Okay. They're appealing to your sense of pride and your sense of manliness. Right? And by the way, Uncle Sam is drawn this way on purpose too, because when you're pointing, and the funny thing is this is head on, so it's like no matter where you are, it's like you're over here, Uncle Sam's looking at you. You go to the other side of the room, he's pointing and looking directly at you. Right? Oh, it gets better, man. This stuff, you can't make this stuff up, man. This is probably my favorite one. Every Liberty Bond is a shot at a U-boat. Fire your shot today. All right? Hey, Gabe, maybe you don't want to participate in the war. That's fine. You stay at home. But you just buy a Liberty Bond, and it'll be like you're right there shooting the Germans. Okay? And notice this, too. Look, you got somebody firing a shot at him, and it's a German sub. And look, there's a German there, and what's happening to his helmet? He's so panicked, he's flying off his head. Right? You can, even if you're not there, you can get in the action. You females who are staying at home because you don't have to go fight, hey, you just pitch in a little money, you can help blow up the Germans. That's right, York. You can continue on the York legacy. Right? You guys are going to love some of these other ones. There's so much. Look at this one. Gee, I wish I were a man. I'd join the Navy. Look at what it says right there, too. Be a man and do it. Right? By the way, is this picture of a female a big deal? It's a huge deal. It's why? And what? Number one, she's wearing a Navy uniform, all right? Are women allowed in the military at this point? No. What would be the only way she would be wearing like a military uniform? No. It's not, maybe not even a significant other, okay? Maybe just some guy she met at a bar, all right? And she's like, hey, men, you know what? And by the way, is she looking at you like, hey, I want to be your friend? No, that is a come hither look, okay? That she's not just want to be your buddy there too, all right? And basically they're telling you, if you're a man and you're part of the Navy, you're going to get some women, all right? Hang on, I got to show you a couple more before we go. There's the traditional Uncle Sam recruiting poster, all right? And we've seen that one. Hang on, there's a few more that you got to see here too. This is another one trying to go with sex appeal. I want you for the Navy. right? Uh, do you think that's why she wants him? No. All right. She wants him for other, shall we say, illicit purposes. Now, listen to this, okay? And this is significant here, too. All right. You do whatever you can to get people to join up. And do people join the military for the uniform? Yes, they do. Let me tell you what, I have had friends who have been recruiters, especially Marine recruiters, and say their best recruiting tool are the dress blues. Because what do women always love? A man in uniform, right? And military uniform, you're going to get the women. Okay. One more to show you. And look at this one. This one's significant as well. Destroy this mad brute. Okay. And by the way, he's got the special little helmet here. This is supposed to be the Kaiser. And they picture the mad brute as what? A giant gorilla who, and it's interesting, he's got a club that says culture on it, which, what kind of culture do you have if you have just a giant stick that you hit people with? Not a very good one, not a very refined one. And who's he holding in his arm here? Not just any woman, Lady Liberty. And what are exposed? She's showing more than the Prime Minister of Finland, that's for sure. All right. They're like, oh, goodness, Lady Liberty's going to be attacked by this mad brute. All right. Look, that's a good place for us to stop right now. I'll show you some videos tomorrow that are relevant, some good propaganda videos.